The ruins of the old city stretched far and silent, a graveyard of broken towers and blackened stone. Captain Elias Ward moved carefully through the shadows, rifle in hand, his boots crunching against shattered glass. Smoke still lingered in the air, drifting like ghosts above the cracked streets. The war had left this place lifeless, yet Elias knew danger still lurked. Patrols from the Cathari, the alien enemy, sometimes swept the area to finish off survivors. He was tired. 3 days without proper rest, 2 without a real meal. But duty kept his steps steady. He was searching for intelligence, maps, data cores, anything that could help his unit. Most of all, he searched for life. Not every human soldier had made it out of the last ambush, and part of him still hoped he might find someone breathing in this ruin. The sound reached him first, a low, ragged breath. Elias froze, lifting his weapon, eyes narrowing as he scanned the street. The sound came again, weak but close, from the collapsed remains of what once had been a stone temple. Carefully, Elias slipped inside, weaving between fallen pillars, and there she was. The alien woman lay half-buried under debris, her armor cracked and stained with dark blood. Her skin, pale and faintly marked with glowing lines, shimmered faintly in the dim light. Her hair, silver like cold metal, spread out across the ground. A Cathari warrior, one of the enemy. Her eyes snapped open when she sensed him. They glowed faintly with a strange violet hue, sharp and cold. She reached for the blade strapped at her waist, but her arm trembled and dropped. She was too weak. Still, her voice came out as a hiss. "Finish it, human." Elias kept his rifle trained on her, heart steady. He had heard the stories about the Cathari, their cruelty, their pride, the way they showed no mercy to his kind. His training told him the same. She was the enemy, dangerous even in weakness. One squeeze of the trigger and it would be over. But he didn't fire. Instead, Elias lowered his weapon slowly and stepped closer. He crouched beside her, ignoring the sharp glare in her eyes. Without a word, he slid his pack from his shoulder, opened it, and pulled out a field med kit. The alien's lips parted in confusion. "What are you doing?" "You're bleeding," Elias said simply. She stared at him as if he were mad. When his gloved hands touched the broken edge of her armor, she flinched, expecting pain, expecting trickery. But Elias was careful, working with steady focus. He pried open the damaged plates, cleaned the wound with antiseptic foam, and sealed the gash with a patch that shimmered against her strange skin. She gasped softly, her breath shuddering at the strange cold of human medicine. "Why?" she asked, her voice strained, almost angry. "Because you needed help," Elias answered. His tone was calm, as though the answer were obvious. The alien woman fell silent. She watched him in disbelief, every instinct telling her this should not be real. Her people had taught her that humans were ruthless, weak creatures hiding behind machines and tricks. Yet here was one, kneeling over her, tending her wounds instead of striking the final blow. She closed her eyes briefly, gathering strength. "You think I will thank you, human? You think I will owe you my life?" Elias shook his head. "Don't care about that. I just don't leave people to die, that's all." People. The word lingered in her mind. He had called her people, not enemy, not creature, not alien. Just people. The silence stretched as he worked. Outside, the wind howled through the ruins. Inside, only the sound of Elias's quiet breathing and the faint hum of his tools filled the space. When he finally leaned back, the worst of her wounds were closed, though she was still too weak to stand. She looked at him with narrowed eyes, her pride refusing to break. "You should not have done this. My kind will kill you if they find you here." "Maybe," Elias said, slinging his pack back over his shoulder. "But I wasn't going to walk away. Not from this." For the first time, her hard gaze faltered. There was something unsettling about him. Not his weapon, not his strength, but the strange softness in his actions. He could have ended her life, yet he chose not to. She had no word for such a thing in her own language. Mercy was foreign to her people. Elias rose, scanning the ruins again. The sky above was beginning to darken, shadows lengthening over the broken city. "We should move before night. If patrols come through, they'll find us both." She blinked at him, confused once more. "Both?" "Yes," he said simply. "I'm not leaving you behind." And with that, he offered his hand to her. The alien woman, still lying on the broken stones, stared at the human's outstretched hand. Her heart pounded with something she could not name. No one had ever reached for her like that, not even among her own kind. For the first time, Sarai of the Kethari blades felt the strange weight of hesitation. The war had taught her to fight, to kill, to survive, but now, lying wounded in the ruins, she realized she did not know what to do when an enemy offered kindness instead of death. She did not take his hand. Not yet, but she also did not refuse. And that single choice was enough to change everything that would come after. Sarai leaned against the broken wall of the temple, her breaths still uneven. Her wounds no longer burned, but the strength had not returned to her limbs. She studied the human as he checked his rifle and scanned the empty street again. His movements were cautious yet not fearful. He behaved like someone used to danger, someone who had walked among ruins too many times before. Captain Elias Ward did not speak much as he worked. He only glanced at her once or twice, making sure she was still conscious. To Sarai, the silence was heavy. Her people always filled silence with orders or chants before battle. Humans, it seemed, could walk in silence as if it were nothing. She found it strange. Finally, she broke the quiet. "You should not help me. I am your enemy. My kind will kill you if they see us together." Elias looked at her, calm eyes meeting her sharp violet ones. "Maybe, but right now you're not trying to kill me. You're just trying to breathe." The answer unsettled her more than she wished to show. She turned her gaze away, gripping the stone beneath her. His words were simple, yet they did not sound weak. In her world, strength was measured by the ability to command, to conquer, to never show softness. And yet this human carried his softness like it was another kind of strength. When Elias offered his hand again, she hesitated, her pride battling her body's weakness. At last, she placed her hand in his, her skin colder than his warmth. He helped her stand, steadying her when her knees threatened to give way. For a moment their eyes met, and she saw no cruelty in him, no triumph, only patience. Together, they moved slowly through the ruins. Elias took the lead, guiding her around collapsed buildings and listening for distant sounds. Sarai tried to walk without leaning on him, but sometimes her body betrayed her. Each time she stumbled, his arm caught her before she fell. Her voice was sharp when she spoke again. "You act as if we are allies. We are not." "I know," Elias replied. "But survival doesn't care about sides. Out here, it's just us." The answer frustrated her. She wanted to argue, to remind him of the battles their species had fought, the blood spilled across worlds. Yet part of her also knew she would already be dead if not for him. That thought pressed heavily on her chest. As night fell, Elias found shelter in the remains of an old human building. The walls were cracked, but the roof still stood. He gathered scraps of wood and lit a small fire, shielding the light so it would not draw patrols. Sarai sat opposite him, her back straight, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. He handed her a ration pack. "It's not great, but it'll keep you alive." She sniffed it cautiously, the smell unfamiliar. "This is what your soldiers eat?" "Most days, yeah." Elias gave a small smile. "Don't worry, it won't kill you." Reluctantly, she tasted the food. It was dry, heavy, nothing like the energy crystals her kind consumed. Still, her hunger forced her to finish. She hated that she felt grateful. Gratitude was weakness, her people said. But tonight she could not deny it. The fire crackled between them. Elias leaned back against the wall, closing his eyes for a moment. Sarai studied him, her mind restless. She had grown up hearing that humans were deceptive cowards who hid behind weapons, yet here sat one, weapon at his side, not using it against her even when she was helpless. He had risked himself to patch her wounds, shared his food, even his fire. She broke the silence once more. "Why do you speak to me as if I matter?" His eyes opened, calm as before. "Because you do." Her breath caught, though she masked it quickly. No one had ever said such words to her. In her society, worth was measured by victories and rank. A warrior mattered only as long as she won battles. But this human spoke as if existence alone made her worth notice. "You are strange," she said finally, her tone colder than her thoughts. "I've heard that before." Elias replied with a quiet laugh. The sound surprised her. Laughter was rare among her people, reserved only for mockery or scorn. But his laughter was soft, almost warm, as if he carried no hatred in that moment. She did not understand it. When the night deepened, Elias took the first watch, letting her rest. Sarai tried to keep her eyes open, suspicious of his kindness, but exhaustion overcame her. Before she drifted into sleep, she caught one last sight of him, sitting still, rifle across his lap, firelight touching his face. A human who should have been her executioner, yet had become her protector for the night. She turned her head, heart unsteady. This was dangerous, not because he would harm her, but because she did not know what his kindness might awaken in her. And so Sarai of the Cathari blades, warrior without mercy, slept for the first time in years without the weight of her armor, and without fear. The morning sun filtered weakly through the cracks of the ruined building. Dust hung in the air like mist, glowing faintly in the pale light. Sarai woke slowly, the faint warmth of the fire gone, though its ashes still smoked. Her body ached less, the human medicine still working within her. She lifted her head and saw him, Elias, already awake, sitting near the doorway with his rifle across his knees. He noticed her stirring and gave a small nod. "You made it through the night." Sarai sat up, her silver hair falling across her shoulder, and fixed him with a sharp look. "You sound surprised." "Not surprised," he said. "Just glad." The word struck her again. Glad. She had no true translation for it in her language. The closest was relief after a victory, but this felt different. She looked away, unwilling to meet his steady gaze. They set out soon after, moving carefully through the ruins. Sarai forced herself to walk on her own, though her body still faltered now and then. Elias never said a word when he caught her by the arm or steadied her shoulder. He simply guided her forward as if it was natural to him. The streets were eerily quiet. Shadows stretched long over broken walls. A distant boom echoed across the city, perhaps from another skirmish far away. Each sound made Sarai tense, ready for battle, but Elias remained calm. That calmness began to unsettle her more than the silence. By midday they found shelter in what once had been a library. The walls were cracked but still standing, and shelves of rotting books leaned dangerously in the corners. Dust coated everything. Elias checked the place carefully, then motioned for her to rest. She sank against the wall, breathing slowly. He set his pack down and searched for more bandages. When he crouched beside her, she stiffened but did not push him away. He worked on her arm, cleaning an old cut that had reopened during their walk. His touch was careful, almost gentle, and it made her uneasy. "You don't have to keep doing this," she said. "I know," Elias answered without looking up. "But I want to." Her eyes narrowed. "Why?" He gave a faint smile. "Because I don't like watching people suffer if I can do something about it." She fell silent. She had no answer because her people had no such thought. Suffering was a test, a measure of endurance. To ease it for someone else was to weaken them. Yet this human did not seem weak. He carried his kindness like armor, and she did not know how to fight against it. Hours passed. The library grew dim as the sun lowered. They sat across from one another near the fire Elias built, its glow lighting the dust-filled air. Sarai's sharp gaze softened as she watched him hum quietly to himself while adjusting his weapon. "What is that sound?" she asked finally. He looked up, surprised. "Just a song." "A habit, I guess." "A song?" She tilted her head. "Your kind sings while hiding in ruins?" He chuckled quietly. "Sometimes. Helps keep the silence from swallowing you." Her lips pressed into a thin line. She had never considered silence something that could swallow. To her, silence was discipline. Yet when he said it, she thought of the endless quiet in her own heart, a silence that had stretched for years. Later, as she shifted to lie down, a sharp pain cut across her cheek. The wound had been small, hidden beneath her skin, but it opened again. Elias leaned close, concern flashing in his eyes. He reached into his kit and pulled out a strip of cloth. "Hold still," he said softly. Sarai froze but did not resist as he gently pressed the cloth against her cheek. His hand was steady, his touch surprisingly light for a soldier's. His face was close now, his eyes fixed on her wound. For a moment she found herself staring at him. The short, dark hair, the scar along his jaw, the tired yet determined expression he carried. When he was done, he brushed the edge of her hair away to check the cut. Their eyes met and neither moved. The firelight flickered between them, casting shadows on the walls. And then, almost in a whisper, Elias said, "You're beautiful." The words struck her like a blade. Her entire body went still. Her breath caught in her throat. She did not understand. No one in her world had ever spoken such a phrase to her. Beauty was not something the Cathari valued. They praised strength, skill, and victory, but never beauty. Her heart raced in confusion. Why had he said it? Why to her, his enemy? She opened her mouth, but no words came. Instead, she pulled back, trembling slightly, her pride and fear colliding inside her. "Do not say that," she managed, her voice harsher than she intended. Elias blinked, surprised. "Why not?" "Because it means nothing." The words were sharp, but they did not match the chaos inside her. In truth, it meant too much. Elias did not argue. He only nodded and leaned back, giving her space. The fire crackled, filling the silence between them. Sarai turned away, pressing her hand against the cloth on her cheek. His words echoed in her mind, refusing to leave. Beautiful. She had faced countless battles, endured countless wounds, but nothing had shaken her like those two simple words. That night, when Elias finally drifted into sleep, Sarai remained awake, staring at the shadows on the walls. She could not forget his whisper, nor the strange warmth it left in her chest. For the first time in her life, she feared not the enemy's weapon, but her own heart. Sarai did not sleep that night. She lay against the cold wall of the library ruins, her sharp eyes staring into the darkness. The fire had burned low, its glow fading into embers. Across from her, Elias slept with his rifle close, his breathing steady and calm. She could not understand how he slept so easily after what he had said. The whisper would not leave her mind. "You're beautiful." The words repeated like an echo inside her, striking again and again. She wanted to tear them out, crush them as if they were weak, yet she could not. They stayed lingering like the warmth of fire in winter. For the Cathari, beauty was not a word used in life. Their children were taught that strength mattered, that scars and victories were the only marks worth carrying. To be called beautiful was meaningless, an insult even, a suggestion of softness. Yet when Elias had said it, there had been no mockery in his voice. His eyes had carried no trick, no scheme. He had spoken as though it were the most natural thing in the world. Sarai pressed her hand against her chest, unsettled by the quick beat of her heart. She told herself it was anger. It had to be. But when she looked again at the sleeping human, she felt no hatred, only confusion. Morning came, and with it silence. Elias rose, packed their things, and offered her water. He did not repeat the words. He did not even look at her differently, as if what he had whispered meant nothing to him. That disturbed her more than the whisper itself. They walked through the ruined streets once more, shadows stretching across cracked stone. Sarai kept her eyes forward, her jaw tight. Her body still ached, though the wounds were healing faster than she expected. Human medicine was crude yet effective. She hated that she owed him her strength. She hated even more that a part of her did not truly hate it. At one point, she stumbled on a loose piece of rubble. Elias caught her arm quickly, steadying her. Their eyes met for the briefest moment, and the memory of his whisper returned, striking her again. She pulled away sharply. "Do not touch me unless it is necessary," she snapped. Elias said nothing. He only gave a small nod and stepped back. That silence unsettled her even further. Her people would have challenged her words, mocked her weakness. But this human only respected it. His restraint was another puzzle she could not solve. As the day passed, Sarai's thoughts twisted like tangled vines. Why had he said it? Why her? She was an enemy, a warrior who had killed his kind. Did humans speak such words to all they met, or was it only him? She wanted to demand answers, but her pride locked her tongue. To ask would give his words power, and she could not allow that. By evening they found another shelter, a broken hall with shattered windows. The sun dipped low, painting the sky in deep red. Elias lit a small fire again while Sarai sat across from him, staring into the flames. The glow reflected in her violet eyes, but her mind was elsewhere. Finally, she broke the silence. "Why did you say it?" Elias looked up, puzzled. "Say what?" Her voice lowered, almost as if she feared the words themselves. "That I was beautiful." He studied her for a moment, his expression calm. Then he shrugged. "Because you are." The simple answer hit harder than the first whisper. She expected him to laugh, to make it into a joke, but he didn't. His voice carried no weight of lies, no need to convince. It was just truth, spoken softly. "You speak nonsense," she said quickly, her tone sharp to hide the tremor in her chest. "Maybe," Elias replied, his eyes steady on hers. "But it doesn't change what I see." Her breath caught again and she turned away. The fire crackled between them, filling the silence. She could not bear to look at him. She feared that if she did, she would see that same calm certainty in his eyes, and she did not know how to fight it. Later that night, while Elias kept watch, Sarai lay awake once more. The word haunted her, circling her mind like a predator she could not escape. Beautiful. She whispered it once under her breath, testing the sound of it in her own voice. It felt strange, almost forbidden, and yet it warmed something deep inside her she had never known was cold. She remembered the years of her training, the endless drills, the battles, the scars. No one had ever seen her as anything but a weapon, a blade to wield. She had been told she was strong, deadly, valuable to her people's wars, but never had anyone spoken as Elias had, seeing her not as a tool of war but as something more. Sarai turned her face toward the fire, her eyes heavy, but her mind restless. She knew she should reject it, crush the word before it rooted inside her, but she could not. For the first time in her life, she wondered if there was more to existence than strength and victory. And as she listened to the human's quiet breathing nearby, she realized the most dangerous part was not his weapons or his skill. The most dangerous part was the way his words could break through armor she had built all her life. The ruins grew quieter as the days passed. The broken city seemed endless, filled with collapsed walls, twisted metal, and shadows that stretched like claws. Sarai walked beside Elias, her wounds mostly healed now. Her steps were stronger, though every once in a while weakness returned, forcing her to lean against the wall or steady herself with her blade. Elias never pushed her. He walked at her pace, sometimes a step ahead to clear the path, sometimes beside her when the ground was uncertain. He did not speak often, yet when he did, his words stayed in her mind longer than silence ever could. She had tried to forget his whisper. She had tried to bury it in the discipline her people had trained into her. But the word followed her like a shadow. Beautiful. Whenever she looked at him, whenever he caught her arm to keep her from falling, whenever his calm eyes rested on her, the word returned. That morning, as they searched the remains of what looked like an old marketplace, Elias knelt beside a pile of rubble. He pulled out something small and brushed the dust from it. A round piece of glass shimmered faintly in the light. He brought it over to her. "What is this?" Sarai asked, frowning. "A mirror," he said, handing it to her. She stared at her reflection in the cracked glass. For a long time, she did not recognize the face that looked back. Silver hair tangled from battle, glowing violet eyes sharp with suspicion, skin marked by scars. She had seen herself in polished metal before, but never like this. Her people did not value reflection. Elias spoke softly. "See, I wasn't lying." Her chest tightened. She lowered the mirror quickly, setting it aside as though it burned. She did not answer, but the heat in her cheeks betrayed her silence. Later, when they stopped to rest in a hollow beneath a broken bridge, Elias shared his water with her. She drank slowly, watching him. His hands were rough, scarred, and steady. His eyes always scanned the ruins, but when they landed on her, they softened. She noticed how he always placed himself between her and the open path, as if his body could shield her from danger. The thought unsettled her. Why should he care if she lived or died? Why should he place himself in danger for someone who had once sworn to kill his kind? And yet the truth was there, plain in his actions. "You are strange, human," she said at last. He glanced at her, amused. "You keep saying that, because it is true." She leaned back against the stone. "My people do not understand your kind. You fight with fire, with steel, with endless stubbornness. But you do not fight like us. You value things that do not make sense. Like what?" Elias asked. She hesitated, then looked directly at him. "Like calling your enemy beautiful." The air grew still. Elias's expression did not change. He only shrugged lightly. "Maybe that's why we're different. Maybe that's why we're still standing, even when the galaxy thinks we should have fallen." She studied him in silence, searching for weakness in his words, but she found none. His voice carried no deception, no doubt. It was truth, spoken as calmly as if it were a simple fact of the world. As the day faded into night, they made camp again, this time in the remains of a tall building with shattered windows. The sky beyond glowed faintly with the light of distant fires, reminders of battles still raging. Elias lit another fire, small enough to keep them warm without drawing attention. Sarai sat close enough to feel its heat. She watched him remove his jacket and place it over her shoulders without asking. She stiffened at the gesture but did not return it. Instead, she pulled it tighter around herself. The warmth was unfamiliar but not unwelcome. "You always do this," she muttered. "Do what?" Elias asked. "Put yourself between me and the cold, between me and the danger." Between me and everything. Her voice was low, almost accusing. He met her gaze calmly. Is that so bad? Her lips parted, but no answer came. She wanted to tell him it was weakness that no warrior should shield another. Yet deep inside, she could not deny the feeling it gave her. The strange sense of safety she had never known. Even among her own people. Silence fell again, broken only by the crackle of fire and the distant cries of the wind. Sarai's eyes softened despite herself. She remembered her training, the voices of her commanders telling her that humans were fragile, foolish creatures. Yet here was one sitting across from her, stronger in ways her people could not understand. She thought of the word again. Beautiful. Not just the sound of it, but the way he saw her, the way he acted as if her life mattered beyond her blade and her victories. For the first time, she wondered if beauty meant more than weakness, if it could mean being seen, truly seen by someone else. That night, as Elias dozed lightly by the fire, Sarai turned the cracked mirror over in her hands. She studied her reflection once more. This time, when she looked at herself, she did not see only a warrior, only a weapon. She saw something different, though she could not name it. And in that quiet moment, she realized the human's words were more dangerous than his rifle, because they were changing her. The night passed without peace. Sarai woke to the sound of distant engines humming through the ruins. At first, she thought it was a dream, but when Elias's hand closed gently on her shoulder, she realized it was real. His eyes were alert, calm but sharp. "They've found us," he whispered. Her heart tightened. Cathari patrols. She knew that sound well. Their war machines moved with a heavy rhythm, their searchlights piercing the dark. Elias quickly doused the fire, leaving only the faint glow of embers. Together they crouched in the shadows of the broken building, waiting. Sarai's mind raced. If her people discovered her alive with a human, they would not see her as a warrior. They would call her traitor. Worse, they would kill him without hesitation. She told herself she did not care, that she should not care. Yet when she looked at Elias, crouched and ready, her throat tightened. The searchlight swept closer, cutting through the broken walls. Voices in her own language echoed outside, harsh, commanding. She recognized the tone of a Cathari officer giving orders. Elias looked at her, his voice steady but low. "If we move now, we might escape. If we stay, they'll corner us. You should leave me," she whispered. "They will not harm one of their own. You have a chance alone." His expression did not change. "Not leaving you." Her chest ached at his certainty. She wanted to shout at him, to force him to go, but the words would not leave her. Instead, she tightened her grip on her blade. The patrol came closer. A beam of light cut across the floor, landing on their hiding place. Shouts rang out in her language, and the sound of weapons charging filled the air. Elias moved first, pulling her behind a fallen pillar as the first shots ripped through the building. Stone shattered around them. Dust filled the air. Sarai felt the old battle fire rise inside her, the instinct to fight. But this time the fire did not burn only for her people. It burned for the human at her side. He returned fire with quick precision, his rifle humming in the dark. Each shot was steady, measured. Sarai leapt forward, blade flashing, striking D. Own the first soldier who stormed through the gap. Her movements were sharp, practiced, but her body still weak. She faltered, and another soldier raised his weapon at her back. Elias was there, faster than she expected. His shot struck true, and the soldier fell. He covered her flank without a word, moving as though he had always been meant to fight at her side. The battle raged inside the ruins, light and fire filling the broken hall. Sarai fought with every ounce of her strength, her blade dancing in the dark. Yet each time her knees wavered, each time her arm faltered, Elias was there, shielding, firing, holding the line. Their enemies shouted in confusion. To see a Cathari fighting beside a human was unthinkable. Some hesitated, unsure if their eyes betrayed them. That hesitation gave Sarai and Elias the opening they needed. At last, the last soldier fell, silence crashing back into the ruins. Smoke hung thick in the air. Sarai stood in the center of the hall, chest heaving, blade dripping with dust and sparks. Elias stepped beside her, his rifle still warm in his hands. They looked at each other, their breaths unsteady. "You could have left," she said softly, voice raw. "I told you," he answered, wiping the dust from his brow. "Not leaving you," her heart pounded. She stared at him, the human who had fought beside her, not as an enemy, not as a rival, but as if they were bound together. She could see it now. His strange strength, the kind that had nothing to do with weapons or victory. It was the strength to hold another life as important as his own. Her people had watched through the chaos. She had seen their faces in the shadows, their hesitation, their disbelief. To them, she had crossed a line that could never be undone. They would call her traitor. Perhaps they already did, but for the first time the thought did not fill her with fear. Instead, it filled her with clarity. Sarai lowered her blade slowly, her body trembling. She turned to Elias, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why do you do this? Why risk everything for me?" He looked at her, his eyes steady in the fading smoke. "Because you matter. Because you're more than what they told you to be." The words struck deeper than the battle itself. She felt her armor, the armor built of years of training and war, cracking piece by piece. He saw her not as a weapon, not as an enemy, but as something more. For a long moment they stood together in the silence of the ruined hall. Outside, the city groaned with the sound of distant battles. But here, in the quiet after the storm, Sarai realized her choice had already been made. She had fought beside a human, and in that choice she had become something her people would never understand. The smoke of battle lingered long after the last shot. Sarai stood among the ruins, her blade heavy in her hand, her body trembling from both exhaustion and choice. She could hear distant shouts of her people, retreating or regrouping, but none dared approach her now. They had seen her fight beside a human. To them, she was already lost. Elias lowered his rifle and walked to her side. His steps were calm, steady, as if nothing had changed. Yet Sarai knew everything had changed. "You all right?" he asked, his voice rough from smoke but still carrying that same steady calm. She looked at him, unsure how to answer. No, she was not all right. Her world had split open, her loyalties torn apart. But at the same time, yes, because he was still here, standing beside her. The truth gave her strength she had never known. "They will call me traitor," she said at last, her voice low. Elias met her eyes. "Then they don't see the truth." Her heart tightened. No one in her life had ever defended her like that. She had always been judged by her victories, by how many enemies she could cut down. But this human spoke to her as if she was more than the sum of battles. The night deepened around them. Fires glowed on the horizon, painting the sky with red light. Sarai sank to her knees, dropping her blade onto the stone floor. For the first time in her life, she did not feel the weight of a weapon in her hands. She felt the weight of her choices instead. Elias crouched beside her, resting a hand lightly on her shoulder. She did not pull away. "You could still go back to them," he said quietly. "I won't stop you." Sarai shook her head slowly. "I cannot. Even if I tried, they would never take me back. And if they did, I would no longer belong." She raised her eyes to him. "I fought beside you. I did not do it for survival. I did it because I wanted to. Do you understand what that means for me?" His gaze was steady. "I think I do." For a long moment, silence stretched between them, filled only by the sound of the wind through broken walls. Then Sarai stood again, lifting her head high. Her violet eyes burned with a new fire, not of pride, not of conquest, but of clarity. "They always said your kind was weak," she said, "that you could not endure without your machines, that you had no honor, no strength worth fearing, but they were wrong." Elias gave a faint smile. "We've heard the same about your people." "Perhaps both sides are wrong," she said softly. She turned then, stepping out into the open street. Shadows of her people lingered at a distance, warriors watching her with cold eyes. None raised their weapons yet, but she could feel their judgment like knives against her back. Drawing a deep breath, Sarai lifted her voice so it carried through the ruins. "You see me as broken. You see me as fallen, but I have seen something greater than all our wars. I have seen what makes the humans dangerous." The warrior shifted, confused, waiting. Sarai's voice grew stronger. "It is not their weapons. It is not their armies. It is their hearts. They see worth where we see weakness. They show mercy where we show none, and in that they are stronger than us all." Her words echoed through the ruins. The warriors stared, uncertain, some with rage in their eyes, some with doubt. To speak this way was heresy. Yet she did not flinch. At her side, Elias said nothing. He simply stood beside her, letting her voice carry. When no answer came from her people, Sarai lowered her head slightly, a strange calm settling over her. She knew she had cut the last tie to the world she had once belonged to. She was no longer only Ketheri. She was something else now, something her people could not name. Elias touched her arm gently. "They may never understand." "Perhaps not," she said. "But I do. That is enough." Together, they turned away from the watching shadows and walked deeper into the ruins, their steps slow but steady. The night stretched before them, uncertain and dangerous, but Sarai no longer feared it. For the first time, she was not walking as a weapon. She was walking as herself. As they moved, her thoughts returned to that one word, the whisper that had begun it all. Beautiful. She had hated it at first, had feared it. But now she understood. Beauty was not weakness. It was the ability to see what others refused to see. Elias had given her that gift, and through it he had changed her forever. The war around them would continue. More battles would burn across the stars. But for Sarai, the war inside her had ended. She was no longer only the blade of her people. She was something greater, proof that even in the darkest ruins a single human word could reshape a life. And as she walked beside Elias, she carried that word with her, no longer afraid.